What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday here again on the Sports Outlet Show. My name's Joe Wagner alongside Braden Wilkins and Brent Allegra. Boys, we're talking about puddles in the Big Ten today. What's up?
Let's go.
Puddles? I thought that was the Pac-12.
No, we already did the Pac-2.
They carried the one over to the Big Ten.
Oh, did they? I don't know. I don't know anymore. Braden, what do you have to say about all this conference realignment? Is it good or is it terrible? Or, Braden, should all these teams just move to the ACC?
Yeah, all of them come to the ACC. It's fun. For this conference in particular, it's fun, but everything just needs to go back to how it was geographically, and 5 power conferences. It was so much fun. The Pac-12 is dead, and now we got teams from Southern California playing Rutgers. So that's all I have to say about that.
It makes sense. Rutgers has about just as nice of a campus, lots of beaches, same as UCLA, coast to coast.
Yeah, heck yeah, baby. It's only a little bit of a drive, Rutgers to UCLA.
Not far.
Rutgers to UCLA?
What is that, like 2-hour drive?
See, because the earth is flat, you're able to actually just take your pencil and go through to the other side.
There you go.
Wow.
Braden, what do we think about that?
It just blew my mind.
Did I really?
Yeah.
All right, we're getting too silly now. We don't get paid to get silly. We don't get paid at all, but welcome, everybody. We are introducing the Big Ten today. 4 new teams, obviously, in Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. Obviously, one more prominent than the other 3 when it comes to football this upcoming season. But, guys, we're supposed to be going in alphabetical order here, but we did have a request. So, Brent, I'm going to hop over your Fighting a Illini, the whatever, and we're going to go over to Who's Your Daddy over with Indiana.
Yeah, there's some stuff going on here with Indiana this year. In 2023, they capped off another disappointing season at 3-9. They finished 1-8 in a Big Ten that is only getting stronger. And since 2019, they have won less and less. They're 23-34 in that time frame. In that same time frame, their new head coach, Curt Cignetti, won 52 football games from James Madison University. Cignetti brought JMU to an 11-1 record last year in their first FBS bowl game. Now he's at Indiana, and he brought 13 of his former Dukes with him. This 2024 Hoosier team is brand new. They had 39 outgoing transfers and brought in 31 guys to replace them. 15 of their 22 projected starters were not a part of the squad last year. Offensively, they brought in senior quarterback Curtis Rourke from Ohio. He had his best season in 2022 when he threw for 3,200 yards and a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Some of the Dukes Cignetti brought in include his leading wide receiver, Elijah Sarrett, and his top 2 leading rushers. The new Hoosiers head coach has never lost more than 5 games in a season as a head coach, but he's never coached in the Big Ten before. It's difficult to project just how successful this Indiana team will be with all of this change going on. Vegas says they might win 5.5 games this season. Their schedule starts out pretty forgiving, but they do play at Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back later in the year. I think this team goes 5-7 with better days ahead for Coach Cignetti.
Wow.
Awesome. That was Chris's favorite coach.
He's gone now. He's gone.
Was it really?
Yeah, it's the one that recruited Chris.
Dude.
It was in 2019, so that's true.
Chris is like 3rd string D tackle, right?
I'm not quite sure anymore. I'm going to be honest.
Well, he got drafted to the Broncos.
Dude, seriously?
Or undrafted free agent, maybe.
Dude, that's pretty sick. I'm trying to find the top 25 on a picture, but it's not letting me find it, and it's making me upset. So I'm just going to have to go to a document and see. We were going to start this way, but, the people want what the people want. So therefore, we had to start with Indiana, right, Braden? We had to start with Indiana.
Yeah, I just want to know how we're going alphabetically, and the next team is still going to be Illinois. Like, how are we starting alphabetically at I when there's a million teams in this conference?
Oh, but Braden, on the contrary. You ready? Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You guys may have forgotten my text. That's okay. But we have an over-under react to talk about with this year's top 25. So let me, Braden, you know what they taught you at Zoom University? It taught you how to share your screen. So let me see if I learned anything. Here we go. Let's zoom in. Let's get down to business. No, we're not looking at this coach's poll, all right? Because for some reason, Michigan got a first place vote. So, oh no. We got to look over here, all right? You can't see everything. Give me a second. Don't look at my fantasy football teams, all right? I haven't drafted yet. So we're looking.
That was the ghost of Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, was it?
Give him that first place vote.
Here, let me get it up here. No one needs to really see much of our faces. Oh, well, guys, I'm just technology. This is fine. Anyways, over under react. What are the couple things you're seeing? Obviously, you see Oklahoma highlighted there in yellow. It's because I have notifications turned on for them. I work there, so if you guys didn't know. But anyways, over under react real quick. I'll start us off. What has Missouri done to deserve number 11 is my first question as a fellow SEC opponent. But then, guys, here, let me get to my handy-dandy notebook here. You know how we like to do things. Braden, start thinking about your first overreaction when I tell you how terrible Missouri's schedule is. Welcome to the SEC. All right, first we're kicking off. Braden, Brent, you tell me wins and losses here. Murray State.
Win.
Buffalo.
Win.
Win.
Boston College.
Win.
Win.
Vanderbilt.
Win.
At Texas A&M.
That one's a toss-up.
I still think they win that.
At the University of Massachusetts.
Win.
Versus Auburn.
Yep. That's a win.
At Alabama. This is their hardest game.
Lose.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah, well, probably.
Versus Oklahoma at home.
50-50.
At South Carolina.
W.
Probably a win.
At Mississippi State.
Probably a win.
Yeah.
Versus Arkansas.
Definitely a win.
So I get the top 25 here. They're at the 11 seed. I get it. They it'll be a good game against Oklahoma too. I get it. But hear me out. Why on earth is this team not going up against Ole Miss, Texas, Georgia? Hold on. Let me keep going. LSU or Tennessee or Kentucky. All right, you got me there. But let's start again. Let's start again. Tennessee, LSU. Then there's the Tigers. Texas, Ole Miss, and Georgia. How do you miss all of them?
They got lucky.
And you're going up against what could be the worst Alabama team in history.
Hey, they got UMass on the schedule. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a big game.
I understand the ranking, but this is going to be as cupcake as the Eagles walking into the Chiefs Super Bowl. It's a Mickey Mouse schedule, and it's not fair. Anyways, I've said my piece. Braden, what do you see?
Notre Dame's always ranked this high preseason. They're going to have to prove it to me. I know they're going to be a good team. But number 7, it's a little bit high. Other than that, I'm not too mad about really anything here. I'm surprised. I like that they have Oregon top 4. It's pretty interesting, especially with Dylan Gabriel coming in. I think that's a good spot for them. So I think I'll talk about this later, but I feel Michigan fans might feel a little bit disrespected by 9, but we'll talk about why that is.
I love it. Brent, anything else?
I mean, overall, not too many issues, but the issues that I do see are on the ACC side. I think Miami at 19 is a bit of a stretch. The team really hasn't proven anything to even be in the top 25, in my opinion. Only one 10-win season since joining the ACC in 2004. So I think people are maybe just a little too excited about Cam Ward. But then again, Cam Ward, Washington State was 5-7 last year. So I don't know if he's bringing too many wins over. I think 19 is a little too high. And then Clemson at 14, I think, is also a bit of a stretch. But maybe that's just because I have a little bit of a personal vendetta against Dabo Sweeney. So just don't see them having a top 15 worthy season, in my opinion.
Who's number 24? I know 25 is Iowa. I can't see 24.
NC State.
24 is NC State.
NC State? Okay. Yeah.
Don't know about that one either.
Fair.
For sure. All right, Brent, I'm sorry I skipped over you, but tell me about Illinois.
Yeah, probably the most uncreative name for a sports team. We got the Fighting Illini. But maybe more unimpressive than their name was their record last year at 5-7, when they were supposed to be building on their record of 8-5 from the year before. Word of advice: maybe try not to lose by 25 points to Purdue and by double digits to Nebraska. Yeah. But anyway, let's get into this thing. They're head coached by third-year man Brett Bielema, who is entering his 4th season at 18-19 with the team. He looks to turn around a team once again who only has 4 winning seasons in 25 years. To turn around the team, they're going to need more consistent production out of their top guys, but the problem is the top 2 players on this team are both safeties, which isn't viewed as a highly valuable position in today's football landscape. Those 2 safeties are Miles Scott and Xavier Scott. And no, there is no relation, unfortunately. I was hoping they were maybe twin brothers or something, but they're not.
Question. Is one related to Michael Scott?
Yes.
But
no, these 2 bruisers combined for 120 tackles and 2 picks apiece, while Miles returned both of his for touchdowns. Their top transfer in also comes from the secondary and junior cornerback Terrence Brooks. This guy had 20 tackles, 3 picks, and 6 pass breakups at Texas just a year ago, and I'm honestly shocked he wasn't all Big 12 last year. The strength of this team is definitely going to come from the back end. My mission for this team going into the season, get back to a bowl game. The schedule isn't easy with Michigan, Penn State, and now Oregon on tap, but do they have enough to push out 6 wins? I think they might have just enough, as I'm putting them at 6-6.
that's a bowl game. That's going bowling.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Let me tell you. As a fan, going to a bowl game, rain going everywhere, can't see nothing, playing against the Green Wave. Annapolis, Maryland, people sliding down mudslides. It's a good time for fans.
Drone strikes only fitting for the Military Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That was a great game.
Just wait till we win the college football playoff this year, Brent. We got that. Awesome. Well, Braden, here's why. We have our third eye team in the Iowa Hawkeyes. And guys, just like your guys' teams, don't know how to play offense. All right, let's keep going. Excuse me. The Iowa. Oh, guys, hold on. Let me put some respect on them. I'm sorry. The Iowa Hawkeyes. All right, so interesting team year in and year out with the Hawkeyes. Obviously, one of the best defenses in the league last season, despite having a -7 turnover margin, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Kirk Ferentz has been here longer than most people that have gotten promoted 3 times at their jobs already here at the 26th season with the Hawkeyes. He's 196 and 119. So he's joined the 100-100 club there. I'd keep an eye out for linebacker Jay Higgins. He's a senior linebacker. I mean, you can put a lot of names on this Iowa Hawkeyes team. You can talk about Nick Jackson, Sebastian Castro, Jamari Harris, Deontay Craig, all these returning starters for the Hawkeyes. One of my notes here is that 8 of 11 of their starters from their last year's 7th-ranked overall defense is coming back. You know how they do it in Iowa City. They like their corn and they like playing defense. So let's keep rocking and rolling with them. The big name, obviously, is the Michigan transfer, Cade McNamara. Obviously, he did not get any snaps behind J.J. McCarthy last season. RIP him as well. He's going into his senior year trying to make a name for himself. It's difficult to do with his Iowa offense, but Seth Anderson should be able to give him a little bit of help with some deep ball presence when Iowa does decide to throw the ball more than 3 yards. Their over-under win total is sitting at 8.5. Their schedule's a little on the easier side. They do have to make a trip to Columbus, Ohio this year. They do have to go to UCLA. They avoid Oregon. They avoid Michigan. They play Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, a bunch of 50-50 ball games late on in the season. I think they're sitting around 6 to 10 wins. I think they go 9-3. I think they repeat that 7-2. But I love, and I cannot stress how much I love that the Big Ten got rid of divisions for this upcoming season because the best of the pack is finally going to be able to be at the top. We don't have to watch any more Michigan, Purdue, any more Iowa, Michigan. We can get the best of the best finally. It may not be Ohio State, Michigan. We'll keep talking about that down the line. But, guys, my fun fact for the Hawkeyes is that their head coach, Kirk Ferentz, is known for chewing bubble gum during games.
Awesome.
Pete Carroll.
That's what I was going to say.
He's the Pete Carroll of the NCAA.
That's awesome. Hey, one thing. I feel like as far as like the AP top 25 goes, like I feel like you can't really argue with this ranking for Iowa. Like they're always at the 25 spot every year. 25.
Tradition.
Just slap it on there.
And I can't wait to see all those 7-3 ball games. It's going to be great.
Heck yeah, man.
Hey, man, all I'm saying is this. Last year they shut out Rutgers, and there's a reason they're at number 25 because they received the ball on the 25-yard line, run, punt.
To the other 25-yard line.
In all seriousness, this Iowa team has a crazy good defense. Look for them to make a name. They would win their division if they were still in this realm, but there are some big dogs ready to finally eat in this conference, and the Hawkeyes might be taking a bit of a backseat. Let's jump over to College Park in Maryland.
Yeah. What are we gonna get out of Maryland this year? The Maryland Terps or the Maryland Turds? Let's find out. Hey, last season Maryland went 8-5 with all of those losses coming within the Big Ten under Mike Locksley, who is entering his 6th season with the team. But the good news for a team like Maryland, like Joe said, no more divisions. I'm sure you guys remember last year when we were barking about it being unfair for the Big Ten championship because Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State were all on the same side of the coin. Well, Maryland was jumbled into that division too, and I think this could be a huge break for them if things go right. But for things to go right, they're going to need a seamless transition after Talia Tagovailoa moved on to the Canadian Football League. Battling next is either Billy Edwards Jr. or MJ Morris. My favorite of the two is Edwards, who adds the dual attack with his legs and actually ran for 7 scores as the backup in 2023. But it's crucial for Locksley to get this right, and as of now, no decision has been made. Also important for Maryland, they're going to need continued production on the defensive side of the ball, and that comes mostly from senior linebacker Ruben Hippolyte, who has been a tackling machine in his 4 years at Maryland. And their top transfer is sophomore offensive guard Alu Ba, who is 6'5", 333 pounds, and just couldn't make his way into the Georgia line rotation. I think he'll be a big deal for Maryland right out of the gate. So with all that being said, I do think that Maryland was able to escape some tough opponents with the divisions disbanded, but this is still a roster that slightly declined from 2023. I have them at 7-5. And a little fun fact for you guys, in its 130 active years, since we're talking about the AP poll, the Terrapins have only received a final ranking in the AP poll 17 times out of 130 years.
Ow.
Yeah, not very good. And there weren't a whole lot of teams back in the day, so not too great, but
That's rough.
yeah.
Hey, Terps are turds. You said it here first.
Hey, I think 7-5 is good enough to be Terps, but lower than 6, that's a turd.
Fair enough. Braden, send me over to our second-ranked team here, the reigning national champions.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch, Joe. 15-0, national champions for the first time since 1997, and a cheating scandal. It's a very, very eventful 2023 season, to say the least. The rank's number 9 coming into the 2024 season, which I said earlier, some might view this as a little bit disrespectful. But there's a lot going on with this Michigan team. Jim Harbaugh is off to Los Angeles to coach the Chargers, and 13 Michigan players are also taking the step up to the next level. This includes a lot of offensive firepower, Blake Corum, Roman Wilson, and as Joe said earlier, J.J. McCarthy, who's suffering from a torn Achilles. First-year head coach Sharon Moore will step in to fill the gaps. During Coach Harbaugh's suspensions last year, Moore acted as the interim head coach in 4 games, and Michigan went 4-0 in those games, beating Bowling Green, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. So a pretty solid resume to start his coaching career. Ignoring the aftershocks of the off-the-field issues, as in the whole Connor Stallion situation, things are going to be a bit different on the field this year. The new look offense will feature dual-threat quarterback Alex Orji. The kid is unproven, as he did not register any passing stats. He did have 15 rushing attempts, though, with 1 touchdown to show for it. He'll have the help of the number 1 tight end prospect in the country in Colston Loveland and a top 10 running back in Donovan Edwards. Defensively, the Wolverines should be just fine. They're headlined by cornerback Will Johnson and defensive tackle Mason Graham. Both are projected to go top 10 in next year's NFL draft. They'll also add former 4-star recruit Jayshawn Barham to the locker room. This defense will boast plenty of strength for this team. While the team still has plenty of talent, their schedule contains some difficult games. They'll face off the number 2 through number 4 ranked teams in the country when they take on number 4 Texas, number 3 Oregon, and travel to number 2 Ohio State in the last week of the season. Those are some tough games. The floor for Michigan, this rebranded team, is going to be 7 wins, and their ceiling is going to be 11 wins. No perfect season this year, I fear. I see them going 9-3, dropping off 2 of their in-conference games to start the Sharon Moore era in Ann Arbor. So a bit disappointing coming off the national championship, but still 9 wins, not bad.
So a repeat playoff not in the cards.
We'll see.
Probably
I
not.
don't know.
I feel like you'll have to get to like 10 to make it.
If you win 2 of the 3 against Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State, I feel like as long as you don't drop a stupid game,
that's a good resume.
That would be way more than enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
The competition would help in that aspect.
I think it depends on how the committee is going to weigh like ACC and Big 12 teams, if they're going to care about non-conference champions in those conferences at all. So
it's becoming fun. Fun.
You could go undefeated and not make it. So
that was with 4 teams. We'll see what happens with 12.
Now, Braden.
Yes.
Let me tell you about the better team in Michigan. Over in East Lansing, the Michigan State Spartans putting up a record like Robert E. Ayler, baby, 4-8, 2-7. Oh boy, It was a rough year for the Spartans. They kind of cleaned house a little bit, out with the old and with the new, as I like to always say. Oregon State head coach, Jonathan Smith. That's a name. Jonathan Smith coming in from Oregon State. Interesting move considering how amazing Oregon State was last year. You'd think maybe you'd want to sit tight, but hey, by all means, take your chances after working with DJ Ugalele. But let's talk some Spartans football here real quick. 4-8, 2-7, horrific year last season. Obviously, when I'm talking about their best returning player being a center with senior Tanner Miller, it's going to be a problem considering he's not even a returning starter. They had 2 returners on their left tackle and right guard for this upcoming season. I'd keep an eye out for the sophomore quarterback that transferred with Jonathan Smith, Aiden Childs. He's expected to be a day one starter here for them. Obviously, it took some snaps behind Uigalele last season. So what more can go wrong in Michigan State land right now is the question. It seems like a full rebuild. They're over-under set at 4.5. Their floor for me is really 3 wins, and their ceiling is 8. It's going to be another rough year for Michigan State. Their 3 wins being getting to start the season against FAU, Boston College, and Prairie View of A&M. So some great non-conference games right off the beat there for them to get them ready. Other than that, I have them going 6-6. I think they win all 3 of those games. They do get to play, and the back half of their season, if they could somehow get through. Listen here. If they can somehow get through the gauntlet of Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, and Michigan, they get some rest. They get Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. So if they can find a way, they're not going to find a way. They're going 6-6. They'll get some wins in the back half of the year, winning 3 of those 4. I think this team will get eligible for a bowl game at the very worst. And Braden, I got a fun fact about Sparty.
Let's hear it.
First of all, we know he's got big guns like me. Sparty first appeared in 1955 at Jennison Fieldhouse as a 6-foot-tall papier-mâché head.
Wow.
This papier-mâché head weighed over 60 pounds.
Shoo.
Oh my gosh.
Go Spartans.
That's awesome. Hey, good enough for a bowl game.
Could be.
But
Although Serenity here says they win 2 at best.
2 at
I
best.
think they might have some bias going on here. These Michigan fans in the chat.
Hey, man. They're just hanging on to dear life for their title before it gets vacated. So
I know they just
There's
won the title last year. They can have an off year. They can have an off year.
there's a reason that Harbaugh's not coming back to Ann Arbor for week 1. So talk to me about the Golden Gophers.
Yeah, man. Hey, for what Illinois lacks with their team name, Minnesota makes up for it with the Golden Gophers. For real, it's a great team name. But when choosing teams for the Big Ten this week, I wanted to make sure that I got Minnesota, mostly because the Giants have seemed to take a liking to their prospects. They drafted John Michael Schmitz in the 2nd round last year and star safety Tyler Nubin in the 2nd round this year. I mostly wanted to see if there were any other star prospects on the roster for the Giants.
Little scouting.
Yeah. But before we get to that, we'll talk about head coach PJ Fleck, who is entering his 8th season and has compiled an impressive record of 50-34. After a disappointing statistical year at 5-7 last year, a lot of people wondered if that was going to be Fleck's last stint with the team, and there were many rumors flying around that he was thinking about the UCLA gig. But the transfer portal saved the day for Minnesota. A lot of this team's weaknesses were saved by the portal. The running game struggled last year, so they got a slew of very good running backs. The passing attack had issues, so the team landed an All-American passer from the FCS level in Max Brosmer. And depth was a serious issue, so they brought new guy after new guy to add options for this team. As for the best player on the team, I'd have to go with Ariante Ursary, who has already proven to be one of the best left tackles in the Big Ten and is a projected 4th-round pick in next year's NFL draft. The best transfer is the guy I mentioned previously, quarterback Max Brosmer from New Hampshire. Obviously, he's not the biggest name in the portal considering he did come from the FCS, but he was a huge get for the team. He threw for almost 9,000 yards and 70 scores in 4 years at the FCS level. And even though I think this team is much improved, I still have them at 6-6 due to the schedule. They have games against UNC, Iowa, Michigan, USC, Penn State, and Wisconsin. It's not going to be a cakewalk. But a little fun fact, in the fall of 1898, student Johnny Campbell offered to lead organized cheers at football games. This offer came after 3 straight losses and a subsequent editorial in the school paper that said any plan that would stir up enthusiasm for athletics would be helpful. Campbell had a plan, and he began to lead organized cheers at the home game against Northwestern. Minnesota won 17-6, and much of the credit went to Campbell and his yell leaders. At that late season game, the tradition of cheerleading was born.
What? No way.
Wait, like cheerleading in Minnesota or cheerleading in general?
Cheerleading in general was born.
Wow. Crazy.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah. It's cool.
Well, there you go. The Golden Gophers, who would have known?
The Golden Gophers, they love their cheerleaders, man.
Braden,
Yes.
hit me with Nebraska, man. How's Matt Rule doing?
Well, in his first season,
Wait, Matt Rule had a losing record?
Well,
That's so weird.
Yeah, you know him. Like you said, the Cornhuskers went 5-7 last season under Matt Rule. Rule is just coming off burning the Panthers to the ground. In Carolina, he won 11 of his total 38 games in 3 seasons. He would like to return to the success that he found at Temple and at Baylor in year 2. And he just might have the tools to make it happen. Keep a close eye on this Nebraska offense as we enter the season because things could actually get really interesting. They brought in a pair of wide receiver transfers, Jamal Banks from Wake Forest and Isaiah Nayor from Texas. They did lose quarterback Jeff Sims to Arizona State, but I promise you Cornhusker fans are looking forward to the new man that will be under center this season. Nebraska managed to land the number 2 incoming freshman quarterback in his class, Dylan Raiola. They somehow flipped him from Georgia after he had already decommitted from Ohio State. Do not ask me how Nebraska ended up with a 6'3", 220-pounder instead of Georgia or Ohio State. I have no idea. The kid is slated to start right away and has some winnable games to start out. This includes a game against Colorado in week 2. Watch for this game to put Raiola on the map. Nebraska's first 6 games are very winnable. They do end the season with 3 ranked games in the final 5 weeks. If Raiola does not live up to the hype, the Cornhuskers could be in trouble. But if he is the real deal, Nebraska could even win up to 10 games this year out of nowhere. Realistically, I do have them winning 7 games and going 7-5 this year with 4 years of Dylan Raiola, hopefully.
Nobody saw that.
I saw it.
Oh, no. Matt Rule, baby.
Matt Rule, he's going to turn it around, and he's going to be the coach of the year. My prediction.
I can see it. If his quarterback does well, I can see it.
Brent, did you know you were doing a top 10 today?
I did not, but I will oblige.
All right. Oh, look at this. Look, already set up here for you. Brent, your blind top 10 today is types of beer.
Can this be, is this like all beers, light beers? What do we got?
It's the ones I'm going to give you. And
Okay.
the first one you hear is going to be a curveball, so be careful. All right? For those of you that are joining us for the first time and don't know what's going on in a blind top 10, Brent has to place his item, this type of beer, in a slot before moving on to the next and then cannot move. At the end, Braden will grade him off of his judgment, and Brent will be able to do one swap for the viewers. Everybody good?
Heck yeah, man. Natty
Brent,
Light.
your first type of beer is a golf beer. It is not brands or types. It is situations of beer.
Okay. Is that for all 10?
For all 10.
Okay. So situations where you would partake in a beer.
Correct.
Golf is got to be up there. I mean, that's top 3 in my opinion. I'll put it at 3.
Staying safe. I like it. Hold on, let me unbold these for you. All right. Let me put these in the middle for you too.
There's a lot of situations here. I like it.
Thank you. Brent, at number 2, your next situation is a free beer.
Oh, well, nothing's better than free beer. You got to put that at 1. There's
Free
nothing
beer. He's
Free
taking
beer?
number 1.
That's
Nothing
1.
better. Nothing better.
Wow.
I can't think of anything better than that.
We'll see. We're going to have to see. Wow. Number 3 is a beer on the beach, a beach beer.
Beach beer. Okay. It's important. It's important, but I could see where some other ones might fly in above it. I'm going to put it at 6.
All right. Respectable. Braden, how's he doing so far?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I like what he's got going on here.
Now this type is certain to some people over rather than others. Brent, it's a shower beer.
Shower beer. Yeah. I've done it a couple times. I personally am not huge on it. I feel like the hot water warms it up too quick.
Okay.
It's not my favorite. I'll be honest. I'm putting it at 10.
Whoo! I like it. There are fraternity boys all across the nation that are cursing your name right now.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
just need you to know.
I'm sure. Just not for me. Not for me.
Brent at number 5. This one hurts. An NFL red zone beer.
Oh, F yeah, man. F yeah. It's definitely top 5. I don't think it's enough to put it at 2, but I'm going to put it at 5. NFL red zone. Got to have a brewski while you're watching a game.
Oh yeah, or 8.
Yeah. Octobox
Brent.
goes crazy.
At number 6, a by the grill beer.
By the grill? Ooh. That's pretty good. I just don't know what's coming. I'll put it at 7.
7? All right.
Yep.
All right. At number 7 here, your 7th option is a beer at a baseball game.
Okay. Again, it's like the red zone. Like while you're watching a game, it's pretty crucial to have a beer. I'll put it at 4.
Put it at 4. Ooh. 2, 8, and 9. Your 8th option, you might be saved by the bell here, is an airport beer.
Airport beer. Yeah. Again, not my thing. Like I know getting on a flight,
What?
like you're excited for your vacation and stuff, but a lot of flights, at least the ones I go on, are pretty early in the morning. And I don't know if I want to get my day started off with a beer at 6 a.m. Sometimes like if it's a Nashville trip, maybe. But just a normal vacation, usually not. So I'll put it at 9.
I think that's where Braden and I are going to disagree. There's nothing like an airport beer.
That's
All right. We got 2 and 8 open with 2 to go. These are somewhat similar, but they are different scenarios. So stay with me. At your 9th option is a after work beer.
Ooh. I know it's coming next.
You said you have two more after work beer. I mean, I partake in that a lot. I'm putting it at 2.
Put it at 2.
I have to.
Brent, at your number 8 is this.
Yeah, I knew it.
Is a Friday night beer.
That's fine. I got the rest of the weekend.
Braden, how did he do?
I think it's pretty solid. I do like a good airport beer, but I can't complain about any beer, if we're being honest.
No.
I think it would be pretty low on my list as well, maybe 7 or 8 instead. And then I would switch Friday night beer and after work beer because after work beer on a Friday night just hits a little bit harder. So I think other than that, it's pretty beautiful.
It's pretty true. Hey, I will say I'll commend myself for putting free beer number 1. I mean, that's
absolutely.
by far
Absolutely.
the best.
Nothing better.
Some honorable mentions were a cornhole beer and a by the pool beer. Those were some honorable mentions that did not make the cut today. But
By the pool, nice. I like it.
Brent, I think you did a solid job. You've done us proud over here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's kick it over to honestly probably the most interesting team in the Big Ten last year. Braden hit me with Northwestern.
Yeah. Where did they come from? What a season for the Wildcats in 2023. They went from just 1 win in 2022 to 8 wins, including a bowl game win over Utah when they are only projected to win 3 games. Coach David Braun stepped in as the interim after there was a bit of a firing and a hazing scandal at the start of last year. And he did a fine job in year 1 after taking on a pretty miserable situation. Let's be honest, though, none of their wins last year were particularly moving. Sure, winning a bowl game is great, but that Utah team was really beat up last year, and they did not play many of their starters. Other than that, who did they beat? Wisconsin? Maryland? That's about it in teams that were bowl eligible. Not many quality wins. This team's offense scored 22 points per game last year, and a lot of their games could have gone either way. So I'm not sure the offense has gotten better either. Their new starting quarterback out of Mississippi State is Mike Wright. He's been okay in his last 4 years, but not great by any means. They do have a wide receiver, and hear me out here, named Calvin Johnson II, starting at slot wide receiver. No relation to
What?
Their leading rusher, Cam Porter, is back, but he wasn't amazing either. Their defense does have some more interesting pieces. They have a good rotation going on at right end with Jalen Pate and Aiden Hubbard. And middle linebacker Xander Mueller puts the defense on his back with 110 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 3 interceptions. So he was really good, their best player by far. I really don't have a lot of optimism for this team to repeat last year's success. The schedule isn't much more difficult than last year's, but they do take on Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back towards the end of the season. I just don't have enough faith in this offense to be able to put up enough production. I think they win maybe 7 games at most. I'm putting them at the lower end of their possible outcomes, going 2-10 and only win 1 game in conference. So a bit of a swing.
8-5 to 2-10 is quite the drop off.
How about 1-11 to 8-5 back to 2-10?
Yeah,
Bad.
That's crazy.
Like that.
Roller coaster.
Like that. The Wildcats getting a new stadium, playing by the lake.
The views will be immaculate.
Yeah, the views of a pick 6 into the ocean. Let's talk about the Buckeyes. No, not the. My dogs are going crazy. It's 100 degrees outside here in Norman at 9 p.m., which is great. So they're about to get taken outside here in a second. But let's talk about the Buckeyes real quick. 11-2, 8-1 for the Buckeyes last season. Any other school? I don't understand. I don't understand. With head coach Ryan Day, he's going into his 6th season. 56-8. How many schools are there around the nation where you have 8 losses in 5 years and you're on the hot seat?
Ohio State's just got a different expectation.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It is what it is, though, with the job.
Hey, man. Anyways, with the Buckeyes, talking about Ryan Day, obviously those losses coming to Michigan, and then I believe it was Missouri in the Cotton Bowl last year, where they put up 3 points. 3 points. It was a barn burner over there. Nobody played of any relevance. This Buckeyes team is really, really different. Obviously, Emeka Egbuka is still going to be there. Wide receiver 1 with Marvin Harrison Jr. going, and then obviously Jalen Fleming leaving as well hurt the Buckeyes wide receiver core as well. But this team added a lot of help, including Kansas State quarterback Will Howard, including Alabama safety Caleb Downs, a couple first-round picks just staring at this roster, and then returning running back Treveyon Henderson, who could well, behind Ollie Gordon and maybe 1 or 2 other names, be the best running back in college football. This Ohio State Buckeyes team, again, year and year and year, is stacked. And this year, they have the weakest Michigan team they'll probably have played in Ryan Day's tenure. Speaking of that, fun fact is Ohio State has not beat Michigan since November 30th of 2019. COVID quite literally took away all the possibility of them beating Michigan, and Marvin Harrison Jr. never beat them once. It's been a long time coming. They're coming into Columbus this year, and it's weird to say that the big game is not even their toughest opponent. It's going to come later on here. I believe it's about week 6 or 7, just staring at the calendar. I'm sure that Brent's going to talk about it as well. College game day is going to be here for Ohio State versus Oregon. Apparently, that is on October 12th, which is also the day of OU Texas and a couple other games that I saw.
There's some big games this year on the 12th. It's going to be huge.
It's going to be so up at the Cotton Bowl. Better have a couple TVs going.
Mm-hmm.
But for the Buckeyes, they're sitting at 10.5 for their over/under. They had the top passing defense in the league, and then they went and added Caleb Downs. So this defense will keep being phenomenal. I think they're going to go 11-1 in the regular season. I think they drop that game to Oregon, and then I think the Buckeyes are going to win the Big Ten in a rematch against Oregon later in the season. You think about those two O teams, Ohio State and Oregon, you got to think if Dylan Gabriel plays like he did last year, it's going to be a special show. And with that, I'll kick it over to the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, Oregon, they're probably the most accomplished team that hasn't made the college football playoff in the past 10 years. Had the expanded playoff been created in 2021, they would have been shoo-ins each of the past 3 years. And really, they were one Washington revenge game away from being in the top 4 last year. But the Big Ten isn't quite the same as the Pac-12, and it might not be quite as easy from a schedule perspective to repeat the 12-win season they had just last year. However, what stabilizes this team is head coach Dan Lanning, who is entering his 3rd season and only has 5 losses during that time frame. There were rumors swirling that he could have been the possible replacement for Nick Saban before Bama finally decided on Kalen DeBoer, and it's definitely a sigh of relief for Duck fans that he's staying. But even now more than ever, it's probable that Oregon will finish as a top 12 team, and that's a lot to do with Dylan Gabriel. Yes, he might not be Bo Nix, but the former Oklahoma Sooner could end the season as the NCAA's all-time passing leader if he does what he's supposed to do.
Wow.
Through 4 seasons in college, he has over 14,000 yards and 116 touchdowns. The guy is the definition of a college stud.
Didn't Bo Nix just set that last year? Is that am I tripping? Is that a different accolade?
It's possible. It's possible. I know it's a recent guy.
Dylan Gabriel's been such an underestimated guy just because of his height, and he can sling the rock, dude.
Yeah.
Like if you want to take a chance on a kid in a first round, that's a quarterback you should be staring at.
Yep, definitely. Especially with like some of these older guys are going in the first round. Like you see Bo Nix and Michael Penix going in the first round of last year's draft. I would take a shot on it for sure. But maybe even better are the guys up front to protect Dylan Gabriel, as Josh Connerly is the best team's pro prospect as a projected second-round left tackle. And on the other side is another future NFLer in Ajani Cornelius. The offensive line is going to dominate this season. Look, this team is ranked number 3 in the country for a reason. They're keeping their star head coach, got one of the best quarterbacks in the portal. The offensive line is one of the best in the nation, and statistically, their defense was the best in the Pac-12 last season with very little turnover. With lots of shakeups happening in the rest of the Big Ten, Oregon could make a lot of noise this season. I have them at 11-1.
Is that one loss perhaps the one against Ohio State?
Yes, it is.
We're on the contrary there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I said the Buckeyes are going to be the one to lose.
It'll definitely be a big game, and I could see it going either way.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
College game day is going to have a tough time deciding where to go. That's for sure. Well, you hit number 2, you hit number 3. It's only right to go hit number 8, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Just a little bit of a jump here. As we mentioned earlier, divisions are gone in the Big Ten. They're out of here, no more. This is good news for Penn State. They are still competing with Ohio State and Michigan, but instead of fighting to be number 1 in their division, they're just fighting for one of the 2 top spots in the conference to have a shot at the title game. Bad news, they're bringing in some pretty good football programs to compete for those 2 spots. James Franklin enters his 11th season with an overall record of 88-39. He has a lot of the same pieces that he did last year to continue to build on last year's 10-3 record. And by some miracle, their schedule is somehow a bit easier than it was last year, at least on paper. Offensively, they still have faith in junior quarterback Drew Aller. Some were disappointed in his performance, but it was actually pretty solid. He completed 60% of his passes and threw 25 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions. They still have their awesome running back duo in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And while he may not get a lot of playing time behind veteran Tyler Warren, they brought in the number 1 tight end in this year's class, Luke Reynolds. Defensively, they might be even better. They have 3 potential first and second round picks in next year's draft. Defensive end Danny Dennis Sutton, safety Kevin Winston, and linebacker Abdul Carter. To bolster their secondary, they're also bringing in sophomore A.J. Harris from Georgia. He only played in 7 games last year, but he's projected to slot into the starting lineup this year for the Nittany Lions. As I mentioned earlier, the schedule isn't too bad this year. They start off against a solid WVU team, which will be a good measure of how strong this team is going to be early on. Their toughest game is going to be at home against Ohio State 1 week before their whiteout game against Washington. I think this team is going to perform up to its potential, going for the 3rd team in a row, 11-1, and losing just that game against Ohio State and potentially competing in the conference title game.
Everyone losing to Ohio State, so they're going to 12-0, Joe.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I mean, the Penn State-Ohio State game makes sense. I mean, it feels like every single year it happens and Penn State drops it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when Penn State's whiteout is or if that game's even in Happy Valley.
It's Washington the next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would, if I was in charge of that, I would personally put it against Ohio State. But
they never do. They never do.
I know, yeah. But that's not a bad one. I think Washington will be interesting.
Yeah, we'll get down to the Huskies. Brent with the take of his life. But
hey, real quick, since we did talk about it, Case Keenum is actually the all-time passing leader.
Really?
Case Keenum. But you were close, Braden. Bo Nix is 6th. Sam Hartman is actually 5th.
Really?
I did not know that. That's crazy to me. But Anyway,
It's so
wanted to throw
old.
that out there.
Let's talk about the Purdue Boilermakers. You know, we just talked about 3 great teams. Let's talk about a 4th. 4-8, 3-6. Not great coming off their last year's Big Ten title appearance where they got spanked by 50 points by Michigan. But Ryan Walters going into his first year, a bit of a bugaboo, 4-8. I mean, I did a lot of research on this team. I mean, the name Hudson Card comes up. But I decided to focus on the fact that they're starting a freshman kicker. Let's get some special teams love up in here. His name is Spencer Porath, and I wanted to note some of his high school stats. Last year, first of all, he was named Indiana Mr. Football. So
As a kicker, let's go.
as a kicker.
Love. Kicker love.
So he went a perfect 7 for 7 on his field goal attempts. That's right, 7. As a senior with a long of 48 yards. He also went 44 for 46 on extra points and had 45 of his 67 kickoffs touchbacks. And he also averaged 40 yards per punt.
Oh, he's a punter too.
He was, but he won't be for this team. But in the scenario that Keelan Cribbins gets hurt, you know, throw Spencer up there, right? It just it makes me wonder how kicking 7 field goal attempts in high school with a long of 48 makes you confident this guy's going to come in and kick against Notre Dame in week 2, Oregon State in week 3, Oregon in week 7, Ohio State, Penn State, you know, some hard places.
My question is, how bad was Indiana high school football if he was Mr. Football?
Maybe we're just showing some kicker love, Brady.
I respect it. Nothing wrong with it.
Their also star wide receiver transfer coming from Florida Atlantic University, Jamal Adrine. He's a junior, so watch for him to get some targets from Hudson Card. 4.5 is their over/under. Their floor is 2. Their best at best get to a bowl game for 6 wins. Guys, I have 0 improvement here at going at 4-8, but I do have a fun fact. The winner of the annual Purdue-Indiana game is the last week. It's the last game of the season. It's in Bloomington this year. It's called the Oaken Bucket Trophy. It's one of the oldest football trophies in the world. The winner gets to add on a bronze chain to this trophy, which is either a P for Purdue or I for Indiana, until the next game. So lots of I's and lots of P's. However, the first game in 1925 ended in a 0-0 tie. So the first link was IP, based on alphabetical order.
That's great.
So that, Braden, is why we start with the I's.
No way. You just brought it back to that. That's crazy.
That was so long ago.
Brent, your job here with this next team is to not talk about one game in particular.
We'll see. Yeah. Up next, we have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who could be one of the peskier teams in the Big Ten going into this season. It's become a trend for everyone to count out this team, but last season they had an impressive record of 7-6. Even though their roster really hasn't been that impressive, they bring the dogfight to their opponents, and it reminds me a lot of that Dan Campbell mentality. They're head coached by Greg Schiano, who is entering his 16th season at 87-95. He started in 2001 with the team, but took an 8-year hiatus to pursue other opportunities before returning in 2020. He's the guy that really brings this team together. The powerhouse of this team is senior running back Kyle Monangai, who ran for over 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns just a year ago. He is currently the 12th ranked running back in the nation and is projected as a 4th-round pick in next year's NFL draft. Their best transfer is former Monmouth star Dymere Miller.
Let's go.
The senior wide receiver is a volume catcher who made 165 catches for 2,380 yards and 17 touchdowns over the last 3 seasons. He's very quick, very fast, and he's about to be a big play target on the outside for Rutgers. Look, Rutgers isn't a team that is going to wow you on paper, but when the time comes, it's not really a team you're cheering to play against. What also specifically helps this team is that even though the Big Ten expanded to a point where a lot of programs have to jump 3 time zones to get to their games, it doesn't really affect Rutgers all that much. UCLA and Washington have to come to them in 2024. I have them at 7-5 this season with a couple potential upsets in there, and I'm fearful that Virginia Tech might be one of them.
No.
It's just like, as a Virginia Tech fan, I look at that game and I'm like, do the Hokies win this? I know it's at Lane, which helps, but
it is a game we would lose. That's a Virginia Tech thing to do.
It's a classic Virginia Tech letdown game.
In Blacksburg, too.
Yep.
Yeah. And another fun fact, Rutgers and Princeton played the first collegiate football game ever on November 6th, 1869. So you can thank them the next time you tune in for a big noon Saturday.
I actually knew that one. I think Rutgers won that game.
I think they did.
Legends. They should have just called it quits right there.
Yep.
We don't like talking about noon kickoffs in Norman when it's 100 degrees outside. Let's keep that out the door. Now those 11 a.m.s against Boston College, Braden.
Oh yeah.
I woke up for a few 11 a.m. games.
That year against Wofford, boys?
Wofford, oh yeah. That was a great one.
Just got to start the drinking early.
Hey, mimosas and a Jaeger bomb before 7 was a good plan.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I heard you, Braden. I heard you. Let's go coast to coast. Tell me about the Bruins.
All right. I could end it with 4 words. Chip Kelly is gone. That's all that matters. He's off to Columbus to serve as the offensive coordinator under Ryan Day. In comes the first-time head coach, former UCLA running back, Deshaun Foster. He took over the team in their first year. He is taking over the team in their first year in the Big Ten, coming off an 8-5 season. And they went 4-5 in their last Pac-12 endeavor. Foster actually played against, fun fact here, he actually played against and lost to USC legend Carson Palmer in the California State Championship game when he was in high school.
Let's go.
And after his college playing days, he was drafted by his birth city's Carolina Panthers in the second round. So yeah, he's got some tenure. He's got some UCLA history. This year, this UCLA team is likely going to have some growing pains with a new head coach and a new conference. Their offense is going to be the focal point of this team. They lost their passing yards leader, but the main starter, Ethan Garbers, was better in completion percentage and in turnover ratio, and he's going to be returning for his senior year. He will have a solid supporting class of wideouts, including J. Michael Sturdivant, Logan Lova, and Rico Flores transferring in from Notre Dame. The offense is going to be run by 2 former running backs, though, their head coach and their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. So I can guarantee you their junior running back, TJ Harden, is going to get plenty of touches. Last year, he ran for 827 yards on 5.3 yards per carry with 8 touchdowns as the number 2 guy. This year, he's going to be the number 1, so look out for him. Defensively, losing Latu Latu to the NFL is a huge hit, but they've brought in a slew of upcoming upperclassmen transfers in the secondary and on the defensive line to try and fill that hole. Schedule-wise, they warm up with Hawaii and Indiana, so it should be 2 nice and easy wins there. The next 3 weeks are going to be pretty hellish, though, as they'll travel to Death Valley and take on number 13 LSU. Next week, they take on number 3 Oregon at home, and the week after that, they take on Penn State in Happy Valley.
Whew.
So they are very likely to be bruised and battered after those 3 games and playing catch-up for the rest of the season. They'll have a couple-game break against, I believe, Minnesota and Rutgers. Later on in the season, after those 2 games, they're going to take on Nebraska, Iowa, Washington, and USC, also back-to-back, which is fine. They might lose most of those games, but that's okay. The Bruins were never going to compete for the Big Ten title this year, it was always going to be a sort of rebuilding year. But it will still seem disappointing when they missed a bowl game this year. With this tough schedule, I see them going 5-7, hoping to come back stronger next year.
That's a rough stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to be hurting. They're going to be hurting.
No thanks. Let's go just, they're neighbors. They're neighbors up there in the California area. Let's go to the USC Trojans. Interesting team here this year at 8-5, 5-4 last year with all these high hopes that Caleb Williams was going to save football in USC. I don't really know what was going on. Lincoln Riley, don't say that name out loud here in Norman, Oklahoma for a couple reasons, but that'll be the only time you hear me say it. He's in his third year at 19-6, and may I say that his seat is hot right now. A star-studded class last season and going 8-5 is unacceptable in the Pac-12, especially with the high hopes of this Trojan offense. It was one of the most electric ever, and the defense was so bad. Let me tell you how. They ranked in the back 100 of every single defensive rank. Defensive scoring, 108. There are 134 teams in college football. Defensive scoring, 118. Defensive rushing, 116. Defensive passing, 101. And defense as a total was 116.
Nice.
Solid.
I don't have the time to describe defenses that beat them, but the names that come to mind are Kennesaw State, Toledo, Bowling Green. This is a Power 5 team. What are we doing?
Kennesaw State, baby.
Let's go.
This is the point totals they gave up last year. They gave up 28 points to San Jose State. They gave up 28 to Arizona State. 41 to Colorado, 41 to Arizona's fine. I'll give them that. 48 to Notre Dame, 34 to Utah. Here's the icing on the cake, lads. They gave up 49 points to Cal.
That's embarrassing.
And then they gave up 52 to Washington, sure. 36 to Oregon, sure. 38 to UCLA. Now we're stretching it a little bit, but 49 points to Cal? That's got to be a record, and Cal still lost.
That's nuts.
It's ridiculous. Anyways, we're not talking about last year. We're talking about this year. They have Zachariah Branch, the sophomore wide receiver. That's excuse me. I can't stop laughing. That's returning from last year. He was a great weapon for Caleb Williams. Expect him to have a big sophomore season. They did get the new quarterback in Miller Moss, a junior quarterback. Dude, he should be a wide receiver. His last name's Moss, but that's cool. As well with them is their freshman corner. They brought in Marcellus Williams. I think he was either a 4 or 5-star freshman, so great commit there from USC. Their over-under set at 7.5. Their schedule is easy, and here's why. So we talk about the Big Ten and some of the best teams in there. They're avoiding Ohio State, they're avoiding Michigan, and they're avoiding Oregon. They do have to go week 1 against LSU in Las Vegas for the college football kickoff. They don't miss Michigan. That's in week 3. They do avoid Oregon and Ohio State. That's huge for them. But other than that, they get Nebraska. They get a weak Washington team. They get Rutgers. They get Maryland. They get Minnesota. They get Wisconsin. That's a pretty easy slate to avoid a couple of those big brand teams. I have them going 8-4. Going 5-4 in the conference, but I mean, not too much changing here for the Trojans. They'll make a bowl game, but I don't see any situation and where they come close to atop this division. Not a chance.
Defense has got to be better.
Oh, yeah. Cal, 49 points. Anyways, your fun fact is the Trojans have a famous mascot. His name's Traveler. He's a white horse that appears at every home game. with the Trojan Warrior on his back that you may have seen. Traveler first appeared in 1961. Bandit wants to help with this fun fact, I guess. During the home opener against Georgia Tech, after two USC students convinced the horse's owner to ride it around the Coliseum. And that's why they have a tradition.
That's hilarious.
Isn't it? Bandit thinks it's pretty cool. He thinks that he's a horse sometimes.
I was gonna say, now ride Bandit around your living room.
There you go.
Wow. Anyways, speaking of puppies, let's go to the Huskies.
Yeah, baby. If you know me, you know this was my sweetheart from last year. I pulled up the show notes from last year. Here are a few nuggets I pulled out of it. I said, don't be surprised if Michael Penix finds himself in the top 10 of next year's NFL draft. He was drafted number 8 by the Falcons. I also said Rome Odunze and Braylon Trice were going to be star first-round NFL picks. Rome Odunze was, but Braylon Trice was a third-rounder, so I kind of missed on that one. But maybe the most important thing I said is that I believed this team was good enough to be a college football playoff contender, and they did that and more. They got to the championship game, finished at 14-1, and it was an extremely exciting season for the Huskies last year. But with all good stories comes an eventual ending, and it might just be that for Washington. Kalen DeBoer, he took the job at Alabama, and as I mentioned, their 3 best players statistically moved on to the NFL. So what's next? Well, for starters, DeBoer was obviously a great coach, but Jed Fish from Arizona is a pretty damn good one too. This is a guy that walked into a program whose last game was a 70-7 beatdown against Arizona State and built the program into being a contender of the Pac-12. That's pretty freaking good. So we'll see what he does with Washington in his first season. At quarterback, they don't have a Michael Penix, but they were able to land senior Will Rogers from Mississippi State. He threw for 12,315 yards and 94 touchdowns in 4 seasons with just 28 interceptions. He should definitely ease the transition as Washington works through their rebrand. Their best overall player is probably senior linebacker Carson Brenner, who projects to be the leader of the defense. He had 75 tackles, a pick, a forced fumble, and 3 passes defended last year. So, in summary, do I think Washington will be even close to what they were last year? No. But I don't think anyone does. And does that mean they will be a complete catastrophe and not compete? I don't think so. Absolutely not. They still have a good enough roster to make some noise, and I have them at 8-4 this year. And they lost to Michigan, by the way, Serenity.
Hold on. I'm typing them up. Something official.
But hey, I was impressed overall. I mean, I know they didn't win the whole thing, but I think they had a really, really good season, and I think it's something to be proud of for sure.
I think you're something to be proud of with that take.
It was awesome. Probably one of the best takes I've had, but we'll see.
Okay, guys. I responded.
That's
and with that
GPT response right there.
Hey, I actually typed that, so maybe I should help them out on Saturdays, you know. Let's finish with the Wisconsin Badgers, a team that everybody wants to talk about. Luke Fickell, one of the best names in college football for a head coach, going 7-6, 5-4 in his first year in the Big Ten. That's what we're talking about today. It's been a long day. 19th year senior joining Cam Rising, Tyler Van Dyke is going to be the starting quarterback over here. Obviously known as the quarterback of Miami and a couple other organizations. If you look at his transcript, looks good on paper, I guess. He picked a good school to end with. As well as look out for senior linebacker Jake Chaney. He's going to be a force to reckon with in the linebacker spot. The Wisconsin defense is always one. The Wisconsin team is always a team that beats somebody they're not supposed to and ruins everything for that team. So whether that's Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State this year, whoever it is, whoever it is, they seem to ruin somebody's fun. That's their job. Their win total sitting at 6.5. I'd say their floor is probably 5 wins. Their ceiling's going to be close to 8. I do have them going 7-5, but that week 3 game versus Alabama, I think, is going to be a really big test for them. They are the home team. It is going to be in Wisconsin, so they should be able to at least get a little bit of crowd help from their season ticket holders. But my fun fact for you guys is, one second here, is we all know the story of draft day of Bo Callahan, the Wisconsin Badger. Well, apparently he was compared to be Michigan State's Connor Cook in 2016 when he was expected to be the first overall of the draft. Now, draft day didn't do it quite as much as this man, but they said the resemblance makes sense, the attitude, the way he played. He's a free agent. The last time he took a snap was 2016, and that was it. He went 14 for 21 with a touchdown and a pick, and he was drafted in round 4, pick 100 by the Oakland Raiders. So there's a little comparison for you. I just looked it up.
That's actually not terrible.
So
Man, they did Connor Cook dirty.
They did.
yeah, so something about the Connors, man. Something about Connors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out with us here tonight. We'll let you go on your way. We hope you enjoyed the Big Ten. We're talking about the SEC and wrapping this up next week on August 21st at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. As always, we appreciate you all hanging out with us here tonight. Super fun podcast. And the question still remains, Big Ten or SEC, because the Big Ten is getting some weapons in their conference. We'll answer that next week here for you. Check the ranking polls, do your fantasy football drafts, start watching some preseason football. It's around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next time here on the Sports Outlet Show.